If I spoke about how I found out about this particular movie, what would I exactly tell you? The time happened quite a bit ago, probably around December. I was at my abuela's house, cleaning up her fence for her, and doing some other chores. Then it was time to take a break. We sat down to eat lunch, and we talked. Then she told me about this movie she watched, called The Shape of Water. She was going on how much she loved it so much, how she liked the music, how the story was told, and how she was encouraging me nonstop to eventually take a look at it. Well, it's now about April. Turns out this movie has been nominated for 13 Academy Awards, including Best Sound Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Mixing, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Original Screenplay, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Music Score, Best Production Design. This movie won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Music Score, and Best Production Design. So one day I eventually decided that it was time for me to take a look at Guillermo Del Toro's latest movie, The Shape of Water. Hello, welcome to my Shape of Water review. Just want to let you know that the Dark Knight trilogy reviews are still going on, but I figured to take a little break from all the Dark Knight stuff. I just do a review of a different movie now. Dark Knight movie review will come next time. I was looking at what movies to talk about. I was like, what movie should I talk about? Well, why not talk about the winner of Best Picture, the Academy Awards this year, or technically last year, just happened this year. That being this, Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water.
If I told you about her, what would I say? I wonder.
Shape of Water is the latest movie made by Guillermo del Toro, who is a director who also made movies such as Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, and Pacific Rim. This movie has gotten quite a lot of praise from the Academy. It got 13 nominations and won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Director, Best Set Design, Best Soundtrack, and more importantly, Best Picture. Which means that in that little place in Hollywood where they have the pillars of with the years on it, and under each year is the movie that won Best Picture of that year. I mean, Shape of Water is going to go under the 2018. It's got a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes last I checked. Let's go ahead and read some of the reviews actually. Why not? Yep, it's got a 92% critic consensus. The Shape of Water finds Guillermo del Toro at his visually distinctive best, and matched by an emotionally absorbing story brought to life by a stellar Sally Hawkins performance. And Adam Graham says from Detroit News, The Shape of Water is director Guillermo del Toro's finest film, a lovely, empathetic tribute to old Hollywood monster movies, outsiders, and love that could only come from the mind of the visionary filmmaker. An enchanting reimagining of Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, that's probably what a lot of people say. Like, this reminds me of Beauty and the Beast. Let's read one more. Let's read a rotten review. The more I try to find some kind of justifiable meaning and relevance, the more I find The Shape of Water a loopy, luck-headed load of drivel. Okay. So it's getting a lot of praise, and a lot of people seem to love it. But what do I think of it? That's the question. Well, let me tell you. You ready? You ready for this answer? You ready? You ready to know? Here's what I think. I think it is a good movie. I don't think it's great. I think it is good. There's a lot of good things about this movie. Before we move on to what I like about the movie, let me just give you a basic plot synopsis without spoiling it. The Sally Hawkins character, which is Eliza. Eliza is a mute woman. She uses sign language to communicate, but she can hear. She just can't speak. Who's living in the time of the Cold Wars, the 1960s. She lives in a kind of a rundown apartment, and she just goes to work at this facility. It's like a government facility, and she's kind of living in a life of isolation. She's introverted. She doesn't have too many friends. Her only real friends is her neighbor Giles, okay, Giles, whichever one, and Octavia Spencer's character Zelda. But then her life is transformed forever when she comes across the facility's latest experiment, that being, of course, the Amphibian Man. And basically, from then on out, the movie plays through. It's kind of like, the Beauty and the Beast kind of story, So now you know the basic plot synopsis of the movie. So what did I like about it? Well, let me tell you. Number one, the performances. The acting performances put on by pretty much everyone is pretty spot on. It's pretty much perfect. Sally Hawkins does a great performance of playing a mute, and she has so much character to her, and you get the kind of person she is, even though she never speaks a single word of dialogue. And she is able to express emotion without ever saying a word of dialogue, too. And it's really good.
He's happy to see me. Every time. Every day. And now, I can either save him or let him die.
Michael Shannon puts on a great accent and also just plays a good job at playing the main villain. Also, Richard Jenkins puts on a great performance as well as being just a guy who's likable. He's like someone you would want to be, friends with. Like when you watch him throughout the movie, I was getting yeah, this is a guy who would lighten up your day if he was around. Octavia Spencer does fine. She did pretty well. And Doug Jones, who was the Amphibian Man, he did a good job there too. And pretty much everyone else's acting is pretty much on par. I never felt like there's any bad acting in here. The acting is great by the main cast, and everyone else is pretty good too. Number two, directing. I do think there is good directing here. There's a lot of good shots, and I think the director helped the actors put on their best performance. And you can tell, because of this movie, that it's a very visionary thing. And you can tell that this director had a vision for the story, and it all works well within there. Guillermo Del Toro does a great job directing in this movie, and I think the fact that he was the director helped this movie stand out more. Number three, music. The music in this movie is good. I don't think it's the best soundtrack ever, but I do think it fits the movie very well. The use of the instruments that are used throughout this movie give it this sense of fairy tale-ness, fantasy, and romance, because that's the elements of this movie. And they use instruments that make it feel like, it's water-related kind of deal, because shape of water, water creature, etc. Also, when it comes to music, they use a lot of music from that time period.
And why do I see rainbows when you're in my arms? I know why, and so do you.
Number four, the characters. The characters in this movie are pretty thrown out. You get who they are. They all want something, and you pretty much get the characters. There are some things I do kind of find wrong with the characters trope-wise, but we'll get into that later. Number five, it's cute. Seeing Sally Hawkins and the Amphibian Man as they interact with each other is quite cute, and it's nice to see scenes together, and you just feel nice and just aw. If a girl's looking for kind of an awe movie, and they don't mind that the love interest is an amphibian man fish that they found in the Amazon, then I'm thinking that girls might find this movie a little cute. Set design is very nice. It gives you a sense of you're in this little secret facility. Also, the sets help you feel like you're actually in the era where it's set, 1960. And there are many other great things too, but that's basically the biggest things that I like about it is that there is great acting and each actor gives a good character. The music is great and helps us set the tone for the story. Your directing is great, and you can tell that director has a vision and it's very well planned out. The shot is great and cinematography is great. It is nice to see all this color, and it's a very beautiful movie to look at. There's a lot of shots that are just very, feel very artsy. That's a cheesy word, but that's best to describe it. And I think it is quite a very good movie. But let's go back to what I said before. I think the movie's good. I don't think the movie's great. Now, why do I not think this movie's great? It's got a 92%, it's got all these awards. Why do I not think this is a great movie? Let's go through the reasons why I don't think this movie's great. Number one, it's predictable. There's nothing really surprising in this movie. Pretty much the story you think you're gonna get, you're gonna get. It's pretty much the standard stuff. We have a creature, a woman who gets basically befriends the creature. There's people bad who want to cause harm to the creature. They have to help the creature, escape. So it's just these elements. You're gonna get. There's nothing that's going to surprise you. It's nothing that's like bad. It's not a bad level of predictability where it's like so obvious. But you pretty much you're gonna be able to know the story. Pretty much from the beginning you're gonna know. And as each scene goes, you're gonna go like, okay, this is gonna happen next. They're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. So basically, it's not a super predictable movie, but it's not something surprising either. Number two is the romance. While it is nice to see the amphibian man and Sally Hawkins' character Eliza interact with each other, it's not the strongest romance that you will ever see in a movie. They have some chemistry, but they don't have the strongest chemistry. Or maybe it just comes with the fact that the person that the woman's falling in love with is an amphibian man who can't talk. Number three, politics. I don't really like to talk about politics in a movie. Usually I want politics to, stay out of the movie. Politics come into play in movies a little bit. But the politics and the political messages this movie was saying was just too obvious to not bring up. So just hear me out a second, okay? Who are our good guys? We have a mute woman, a black woman, we have Giles, played by Richard Jenkins, who is a gay man, and we have a Russian scientist who wants the creature to live. Who are our bad guys? Bad guys are army generals or heads of parts of the U.S. Army. They're American. They believe in the Bible.
You may think that thing looks human. Stands on two legs, right? But we're created in the Lord's image. You don't think that's what the Lord looks like, do you?
I wouldn't notice that.
And they kind of take advantage of the minorities. And there's other things in this movie, too, that kind of help reinforce that. It's a very leftist-leaning movie. It's nothing bad, but it's just obvious. After watching, I'm like, well, now I know why it won Best Picture. So those are my major problems with the movie. There are some others, but I'm gonna have to get into spoilers to talk about them. So now you know what I think about the movie. Like I said, I do like the movie. Even with its flaws, I still like the movie. If I had to give this movie out of 10, I'd probably give it a 7. 7 out of 10, and I'm pretty confident in that number. I've seen 3 Billboards, and I think that's a better movie, a much better movie. Would I recommend this movie? Yeah, if you want to see something a little different and see a movie with, Guillermo Del Toro's fingerprints on it and his directing skills, then yeah, give it a watch. You'll probably like it. I liked it. This movie is not for everybody. There are a person or two I know that did not like this movie at all. Part of that being because of the politics. But I think that if you don't let it affect you as much, that you'll find this movie an enjoyable, good time, and just see a nice little sweet fantasy romance in this movie. And I hope that my grandma appreciates me doing this review, because I'm partially doing this for a while because she wanted me to see this quite badly. So now you know that, so I'm going to get into specific spoilers, so if you don't want any spoilers, click off the video now and I'll see you in the next one. The next video will be the Dark Knight review. But now I'm going to be talking about spoilers, so again, if you don't want any of that, click off the video now. 3, 2, 1, go.
When he looks at me, the way he looks at me, he does not know what I lack or how I am incomplete.
What? How do you know this thing sees you for what you are, or know that you are not incomplete or whatever? This thing has expressions just like any other creature. I can't really tell whether it's looking at you with happiness or sadness. You might be thinking, okay, it's just a fairy tale, whatever. But all of this like he is the one kind of talk just seems to come out of very little evidence. It's not a major complaint, but it's just one I was like, well, this seems out of nowhere. Like they haven't interacted too much. They've only interacted a few times on screen before she said that. If they gave the creature maybe more facial expressions, or maybe had it be be a little more smarter and actually like maybe do some more human-like things, then maybe that could be more viable. But anyhow, that's a minor complaint I have regarding the relationship stuff in this movie.
That's good. Keep that up. Looking like you don't know anything. Lord, help me if they ask me if I do. I'm not a good liar.
Don't say that in the elevator. People are listening. If Michael Shannon's character comes and asks people if they know anything about where the fish creature and who maybe took it, they might mention, oh, I heard these two people, the mute woman and this black woman, who were talking about a secret and saying that she was not a very good liar. Don't say this around people. Talk about this in private. People can hear you. Okay, so now let's move on to this. So apparently they want this creature for reasons of space. You see, they see this creature can breathe outside of water. It doesn't have to stay in water. It just has to go back in the water every now and then, but it can come out of the water and breathe, saying because it has like a second pair of lungs. And they want to like dissect this thing to figure out how it works, so that they could figure out how to do this for space so that humans can go into space. Except there's one little thing, like, how would that work? Like, this is maybe another minor plot point, but like, how would dissecting this thing work? First off, you would kill it, so in order to take it apart, and it has like two lungs. Like, it has one pair of lungs, which is the normal lungs when it's in the water for breathing, and then it has a second lungs, which is used for breathing outside the water. But it's just like, okay, first off, you're going to space where there is no water and no air, and like, we don't know how his lungs work. Like, do the second lungs breathe air, or are they filled with air and they like eventually run out of supply? That's why he has to go back in the water. Do the first pair of lungs breathe in the water? The second pair of lungs breathe in the air? Also, if the second pair of lungs was like an air container, how would you fit that into a human body? The human body is pretty packed with organs and things. Where are you going to put a second pair of lungs? It's very hard to do that. Unless you take out the human lungs in your like human astronaut and replace it with these fish lungs, and even then you wouldn't know if that would work or not, because this is set during the time of the Cold War. Anyway, do you see my point here? I don't think it's like a strong enough point to be like, well, okay, like, they want to kill this thing because it can breathe outside the water, and they can maybe use that for the astronauts in the space race. Like, what? Like, that's something. Personally, I would just keep this thing alive, show it to the public, make millions. That'd be a great way, and you can use that money to fund your NASA research or whatever. So basically, I just don't understand what exactly they would do. Like, if you kill the thing, and then you dissect it and find out how the lungs work, like, if like, for example, the lungs wouldn't work, like, the organs wouldn't transfer, and the human body would not accept, like, the fish lung organs, then basically you killed the thing for no reason, and now you're back to square one, with no fish creature. Anyway, I'm pretty sure you get my point with this. It's not a major complaint, but it's just one I was like, okay, I kind of don't get what they want to do. Like, I don't know how this would work, but anyhow, let's move on. Well, that wasn't obvious at all. Okay, to be honest, I was kind of spoiled. I was told that this woman could breathe underwater. I was like, oh, okay. And then when I saw her little scars on her neck, I'm like, okay, those are totally gills. And at the end, I was proven totally right. So I don't know how that happened, but anyhow, it's kind of obvious when you think about it. If I didn't know that she could breathe underwater beforehand, I wouldn't know probably what those scars are. I probably would have been like, those are going to come into play later, I think. But since I was spoiled to the fact that she could breathe underwater, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, those are totally gills. And they are. Well, to be honest, the gills thing makes it probably more logical reason why she would be attracted to this fish creature and fall in love with it. Okay, I'm going to go back to the politics of this movie a bit. I'm going to talk about some scenes that makes the political orientation of this movie so obvious. For one, there's a scene where Richard Jenkins, where he goes to the pie bar to talk to the guy who runs the pie bar, and basically he holds his hand and basically is like, I have feelings for you, and then the pie bar guy rejects him no, I'm not gay. But that wasn't enough. Also, a black couple comes in, and basically the pie bar owner says, no blacks in here allowed. So not only does he not like gays, but he also had to hate the black couple that walked into his restaurant. Now, this I can be a little more forgiving because this was in fact set in the 1960s. I believe the precise year this film is set in is 1962. So yeah, there was racial tendencies and Gays were not accepted back then, so I can be forgiving of that. But you are now starting to see why this won Best Picture, right? And not a better movie such as Three Billboards. Also, let's talk about Michael Shannon's character for a second. So there is this completely unnecessary sex scene with Michael Shannon's character and his wife, and it's not really needed in this. Why? Because there's absolutely no point to it. There is only one point to it, and it's to kind of show that Michael Shannon's character is slightly abusive to the wife. He doesn't slap her or anything, but basically like he covers her mouth and says silence while they're basically having sex. The only point to that scene really was to show that Michael Shannon's character is slightly abusive, that the army general, Bible-believing person, is slightly abusive. You starting to see why this won Best Picture yet? So that about wraps up my spoiler complaints with the movie. Even with the flaws that I have said, I would still recommend this movie. I think it's a nice little fantasy romantic movie that's cute in some parts and has great directing, a good soundtrack, great acting, and other things, despite its flaws. If you're looking something with fantasy, some fairy tale elements, and a nice bit of romance, give this a watch and see for yourself. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Unable to perceive the shape of you, I find you all around me. Your presence fills my eyes with your love. It humbles my heart, for you are everywhere.